What are the expectations for the Orlando Magic? Well, ESPN came out with their thoughts in the NBA ranked 100. So let's talk. What do we think the Magic are going to do? And what do they have to prove today on Locked On Magic?
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is September 25th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to talk about expectations. What are the Magic expected to do, and what are their actual goals, or what are the measurable goals that they can get this season? We'll talk about that in the context of ESPN's off-season content generation machine. We'll go back over the Locked On NBA Top 100, compare some lists as well. We'll get to that and what it all means today on Locked On Magic. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic even bigger part of your day by being one of our Orlando Magic dailies. That's right, listening 5 days a week. Get in the habit now because next week's training camp. Don't want to have to catch up and get in shape before camp. Check it out wherever you download podcasts, all part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. There are big ambitions for the Orlando Magic this season. There is a lot of belief and a lot of hope in what this team can accomplish. There is a clear vision of what this team can do. Jeff Weltman has laid the gauntlet down. The usually very quiet and calm and composed Jeff Weltman said, we're not here to win the East. We're here to win the NBA. And eventually the Magic want to be championship contenders. Certainly, they're spending like they're going to be championship contenders. They're spending like they're going to the NBA Finals. The question is this a realistic goal? Now, look, the East is wide open this year. It's a coincidence that it turned out this way, but the Magic not only should think, hey, we can win a playoff series, but we can get to the conference finals. And once you get to the conference finals, once you're one of the final four, anything is possible. Anything can happen. You're down to a best of 7 series. Anything can happen in those 7 games. And so, yes, let your imaginations run wild. Be thinking of the biggest, craziest things this team can do. Because it's not so far away. It's not so far-fetched. For the first time in more than a decade, it does feel like the Magic have the opportunity to do something extremely special, to do something incredibly special, something that this franchise hasn't seen in a very, very long time. The question is, will the Magic meet those expectations? Or what is the general thought? We're going to talk more about this over the next month before we get to the season. And Sunday is our table setter day. But I'll go ahead and spoil it here. My expectations for the Magic is, yes, I expect them to win 50 games. That is a marker of success in this franchise's history. It's a clean number. It's a nice round number. Winning 50 games means you are a really good team. Yes, I expect them to have home court advantage in the playoffs this year in the first round. I don't want to travel for game 1. Let's have that at the Kia Center. Yes, I expect the Magic to win a playoff series and advance out of the first round for the first time since the 2010 season. All of that is the baseline. And anything else you get above that, like in 2009, is going to feel a little bit like gravy. Important gravy, important growing steps and learning steps. I'm just a believer that you have to learn that winning a championship is a long process. It takes some tripping. It takes some falling. It takes some hard scars and tough lessons. And this Magic team has gotten its share of them already. The loss in Game 7 was a hard lesson for this team. Learned a lot from it. Again, I still believe the Magic were a better team last year when they were healthy than they were in 2024. the injuries and going through the difficulties of last season, that has made the Magic a better team. That has made the Magic better for this season. It certainly taught the front office, like, okay, we need more. We are good enough to push the chips in, to move forward. And the Magic are capable of meeting these goals and expectations. The Magic are capable of delivering those goods. And I think they are a better team now, certainly than they were last year, and certainly than they were in 2024. I think they are capable of doing this. The question is, how ready? How far along? How much will this bet pay off? Because the Magic, with all the money they've invested in this team, Franz Wagner getting a max contract, Jalen Suggs getting his extension, Wendell Carter getting his extension, Jonathan Isaac getting his extension, Paolo Banchero getting his max, taking in Desmond Bane and the remaining 3 or 4 years of his contract, the early part of his contract. This is your team. And the Magic are not our tax team for the first time since 2012, since Dwight Howard this season. They will be a second apron team or flirting with the second apron next year. And you do not go into the second apron unless you're playing for a championship. So this is not just idle talk from the Magic. This is the Magic saying, this is the Magic confirming, no, we are invested. This is what we have to be. To say the least, if the Magic are not competing for a championship in 2027, if we don't feel like they are on the cusp of winning a title, this is a failure. And so to me, ultimately, that is the expectation for the season. That is what the Magic need to prove this season. That they are on the path to a championship. We need to exit the 2026 season, whenever we exit it, seeing a clear line to a championship. Seeing a clear line that says we are on the door. We are on the doorstep, and maybe we just needed some battle scars to get there. We need to see an offense that functions, that makes shots, that gets the team deeper into the postseason. It's quite simple. We need to see Paolo Banchero develop and turn into not just an all-NBA type player, but one of the very best players in the league. A player who is so undeniable that you're just picking nits if you don't like him, or you're looking for something to be wrong with him. We need Franz Wagner to pretty much do the same, be an all-NBA level type player and a perfect running mate, sometimes main star for Paolo Banchero. There's every reason to believe that both of those players will deliver that. We need to see Desmond Bane and Jalen Suggs fill their roles perfectly. Provide the Magic with the offensive boost that this team so desperately needs. We need to see young players like Anthony Black step up into roles. We need to see Wendell Carter and Jonathan Isaac be closer to the best versions of themselves that we've seen at various points in their career. We need to see that this team is not far, is a bad break, is another year of internal development away from competing for that ultimate prize. This year may not be championship or bust. And honestly, 2027 may not be either. But it needs to be clear that is the path that we're heading on. It needs to be clear that is the direction we're going. And frankly, I can't tell you what that looks like. To me, like a competitive second round series. You go up against the Knicks, you go up against the Cavs in the second round, and they really have to fight you for it. That's important. You can't beat a team in the first round, get to the second round, and get smoked and look like you're not in the same league. That's probably what that looks like. And that's the biggest thing the Magic haven't proven. At the end of the day, where a lot of people sit at, where a lot of people are kind of stewing on the Magic and thinking about what this team can be, that's the thing that they aren't seemingly able to get over. Is that the Magic, they can't seem to get over the fact that the Magic haven't done it yet. And that's the prevailing thought from the national media. We'll talk more about what ESPN has to say about the Magic. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel is great because it fits however you like to bet, with player props, same-game parlays, and even jumping into live action as it unfolds. It makes every game way more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So, are you ready to play? I can't hear you. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. I am not one to give a lot of credence to what like ESPN says. Look, ESPN is the behemoth in the market. They are conversation starters. As I always do with stuff like this, I try to think about, what does this actually mean? Like, what is this actually saying about the Magic? Because, who cares if they're talking about us? If the Magic are winning, if they're talking about us, they're probably not listening to me as much, which, is fine. Please listen to me. But ultimately, like, if you win, you get talked about. Like, it's not a complicated formula. The Magic are on national TV a little bit more this year because they're expected to win a little bit more. The Magic are in conversations because they're expected to win a little bit more. Unless you're the Knicks, unless you're the Lakers, unless you're a glamour market team, and like even the Bulls don't get talked about that much. It's really just the Knicks and Lakers and the Celtics to some extent. Unless you're one of those glamour teams, no one cares about you if you're not winning. And so the fact that the Magic aren't talked about a lot, the fact that there's these lingering criticisms of Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, like Eurobasket, I had a lot of people complaining to me, like, oh, ESPN's talking about Eurobasket, but they're not talking about Franz. They're not talking about Germany. They're the German favorites. And you're right. But like, I don't care. Germany's winning. Franz is playing great. Who cares what they're saying? But ESPN did their little insider poll. And the Magic are mentioned. Like, the Magic are part of the conversation. Teams with the best offseason, Magic got a couple votes. The biggest move of the offseason, the Desmond Bane trade was the second biggest move of the offseason, according to them. Only the Kevin Durant trade was bigger. Those are things. Like, the Magic have indeed entered the conversation and entered the national discourse. They're going to be part of that conversation. They're just by sheer will of they're on TV a little bit more. And when you look at the standings, you're going to see that you're going to see that the Magic are among those teams. And obviously, like, that kind of stuff is earned. The next step, though, the next piece of this puzzle, the next part of this process is proving that you deserve it. It's proving that you're more, proving that you can get a little bit more. And so ultimately, like, why are the Hawks getting more votes to win the Eastern Conference in the ESPN Insider poll than the Magic? It's because they've been there. It's because Trae Young has won a playoff series and been to the Eastern Conference Finals. Because Kristaps Porzingis has won and has been part of a team that won an NBA championship. But I think everybody is waiting. If you're someone that cares about this stuff, that is like eager to see ESPN give the Magic the attention they deserve, it comes down to the Magic have to do it. The Magic have never done it. They haven't done it before. And now they have to do it. And until they do it, there's always going to be that little bit of doubt that they can do it, that they can win a playoff series, that they can go deep. And that's a natural part of the process. That is a natural part of the cycle. In fact, remember, like the Boston Celtics, everyone was saying they needed to break up Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum until they won a championship. And it was like, oh, no, that duo works. There's no doubt about it. That's the same thing that's going to happen. Look, we're going to get some. Do the Magic need to break up Paolo and Franz? No, it's both and, not either or. But that's going to be part of the debate and part of what the Magic are going to be thinking about. And it's going to be part of the process of winning a championship, of questioning everything and figuring out what you actually truly believe in. And right now, the Magic haven't done anything. Right now, the Magic haven't proven anything. And that is a big part of what this season is about, is proving they are one of the best teams in the East. It's about proving that Paolo Banchero is a bigger star than anybody lets on. The more interesting part of that poll, and we're going to get to ESPN's NBA rank here in a minute. The biggest part of that poll, to me, was that the reason why ESPN, why the national media don't quite consider the Magic a championship contender yet, is because they're not quite sure Paolo Banchero is that dude. On their votes of who the best player in the NBA is going to be in 5 years, Victor Wembanyama is running away with it. And look, I'm not here to say that Victor Wembanyama is a bad player. He's a very, very good player. You know, just the skill set that you have at 7'4", I get it. I'm not upset that he gets more attention than Paolo Banchero. He is a extremely unique player. He is unlike anything we've seen in the league, and the Spurs are a better team simply by his presence. I'm not upset. I'm more upset that Paolo gets looked over as a number one pick when compared to Cade or compared to other players get the benefit of the doubt as the number one pick that Paolo hasn't gotten. I get upset about that because I know how good Paolo is. But ESPN to this extent is right. We don't know if Paolo is going to be a perennial MVP candidate. We don't know that yet. The Magic are certainly paying him like he is. And that is the ultimate question. If the Magic want to win a title, that's the area that Paolo has to improve. That's the perception that Paolo has to change. Now, there is some suggestion that he could. In this same poll, Paolo Banchero got a vote for who the best American player is going to be in 2030, which is a small thing and eliminates a lot of really good players as well. But look, Paolo Banchero is going to be on the World Cup team in 2027 if he wants to be, and he's going to be on the Olympic team in 2028. Paolo Banchero is one of the best American-born players in the league. And so there is definitely that sense of yes, Paolo is in this upper echelon class of NBA players. He is in this group of guys that we have to pay attention to. But the question is whether he is enough to lead this team to a championship. And that's the question that ESPN and the national media aren't ready to answer. And frankly, that is a fair question to ask because we don't know the answer. The first step in that process was getting Paolo Banchero, the players, to elevate his game, or the players that he can help elevate. The Magic did that. Look, Paolo, I think he put up all NBA numbers last year. I think he's, anyone who says he's not an all NBA player yet, you're not paying attention. I could go over those numbers again. He averaged 29 points per game after the All-Star break, shot a 58.1, I think, true shooting percentage, was top 10 among players with a 30% usage rate. I think Paolo has made the leap, and getting a player like Desmond Bane, getting a healthy Jalen Suggs, the roster changes that the Magic made, I think will help him be more efficient and put that terrible, terrible argument to rest once and for all. It's plain and simple. But to be sure, how far the Magic go, what they are able to do, rests on Paolo Banchero and his development. And so we do have to think, where does he fit in the bigger picture? Let's review where he sat in the Locked On NBA Top 100, as well as where he sits on ESPN's NBA rank and what that says. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Skims. If I can get my copy to load, it's not the right copy. When I found out Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about the quality from friends and families, so I had to give it a try. Let me tell you, it lives up to the hype. I was not a briefs person. I was a boxers person, almost exclusively. And then I tried Skims, and I can't get enough of briefs. Actually, they sent us a sample just to help us with the ad reads. I bought another order. I was like, I need more of these. These are great. Underwear is uncomfortable. That conversation is uncomfortable. Finding just the right style, finding the fit, finding the comfort, Skims changes all of that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. I've tried several different brands of Skims, whether it was the briefs, the boxer briefs, cotton, non-cotton. I'm hooked. These are perfect for my active lifestyle. They move with me, never lose their shape, and stay in place all day. Whether you're working out or just running errands, they're the most comfortable and reliable underwear I've ever owned. Plus, the lightweight material feels amazing, almost like you're wearing nothing at all. So, shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we sent you after you place your order. Select podcast in the survey and select Locked On Magic in the drop down menu that follows. Again, check that out at skims.com. So let's talk then about where Paolo Banchero fits in the ESPN NBA rank. This is ESPN writers and personalities get together. They rank the top 100 players in the league, just like we did here at the Locked On Podcast Network. We're going to go over where he sits on that. And I want to make sure that we get a sense of where Paolo is in the pecking order of the league. In 2024, Paolo Banchero ranked 24th in the league. Very clearly high expectations for him. They rank him 17th. He cracks the top 20. Certainly, it feels like there's a little bit more respect from ESPN and a little bit more respect in what Paolo accomplished and what he's going to do this year and how much he can elevate his game than what we saw from our voting panel at Locked On NBA. The Locked On NBA top 100, Paolo Banchero came in at 23. So ESPN has him 6 spots higher than we did at the Locked On NBA top 100. I had him at about 20. I think I had him at 19 or 20, maybe 21. So generally, again, I said this when I went over the list a few weeks ago. I care more about the players he's surrounded with. So, again, I have the graphic up if you're watching on YouTube. Paolo's surrounded by Pascal Siakam, Jaylen Brown, James Harden, Jaren Jackson, Trae Young. These are all kind of like flawed stars is how I would describe them. Either guys that are just established and kind of hit their ceiling. Maybe that's unfair to say about Siakam. Harden's on the way down. Jaren Jackson's got some issues. Trae Young's got his issues. Darius Garland's got his issues. Jaylen Brown's obviously got a big opportunity this year. These are kind of guys that there are clear stars, but they have questions about. Looking at who surrounds Paolo on ESPN's NBA rank list, Kawhi's at 20, Jaylen Brown's at 19, Jimmy Butler's at 18, so those are 3 behind him. Devin Booker's 16, Donovan Mitchell's 15, Anthony Davis is 14. ESPN's NBA rank sees Paolo as a clear star and potential superstar. Guys that really that have potentially elevated their game, maybe not to the MVP level. Anthony Davis is on the way down. Jimmy Butler's on the way out. 18's too high for Jimmy Butler anyway. Jaylen Brown is kind of who he is. And again, we'll see him probably get more opportunities and more shots this year. Paolo Banchero is clearly a guy like kind of on the way up. And ESPN, I think, a lot more than us at the Locked On Network, clearly sees Paolo as a star in the making. It's everyone else that things get a little murky. Franz Wagner on the Locked On NBA Top 100 list came in at 35, which probably about right. I probably had him a little higher than that. On ESPN's NBA rank, Franz came in at 32. So again, a little bit higher on Franz, but you look at the group that Franz is around in these lists. Alperen Sengun, going to go way up. He's not going to be 36. That's 36 on the Locked On NBA list. Jamal Murray, borderline all-star. De'Aaron Fox, borderline all-star. Domantas Sabonis, Bam Adebayo have been regular all-stars. This group, 31 to 40, are kind of your borderline all-stars. Your 3 players behind Franz are De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Ja Morant. So we got the same tiers here. The 3 players ahead of Franz, Jaren Jackson Jr., Scotty Barnes, Trae Young. These are guys who are stars depending on how their teams play. And look, both Locked On and ESPN have Franz Wagner in about the same spot, around the same players, in fact. And it feels like there's just, I don't want to say a belief, but it feels like they're just as uncertain of Franz becoming a star as everyone else. Now, we watch Franz every day. If the Magic are as good as we think they're going to be, and certainly with the new All-Star format, Franz Wagner is going to be an All-Star next year. He's going to be on the international team. He's one of the best foreign-born players in the league. he's going to be an all-star. It's whether he's a regular all-star, whether he doesn't need team success, or, maybe a guy like Jason Tatum being out to make that all-star team. And look, Franz, while Paolo's the one that seems to get most of the internet criticism, Franz, as good as he is not blameless either. He's got to figure out his three-point shot. He's got to figure, he had a great playoffs last year. I think he put those concerns to bed and had a great Eurobasket this year. I think he put a lot of those concerns about stepping up in big games to bed over the last 2 years, or over the last year. But Franz has to prove that he can play at a higher level, that he can survive with an inconsistent three-point shot. And a big part of that puzzle, of course, is Desmond Bane. On ESPN's list, Desmond Bane came in at number 39. Number 39 on ESPN's list. On our list on Locked On NBA, Desmond Bane was 46. So quite a difference. And, again, if you're watching on YouTube, I've got the graphic up with Desmond Bane. You can kind of see he's on the list in this grouping of like elite role players. It's Jalen Johnson, Scotty Barnes, 41 and 42 on the Locked On NBA list. They're stars on the rise. Aaron Gordon, OG Anunoby, Desmond Bane, Amen Thompson. Those are like the elite of the elite in role players. Those are the best role players. Guys who know what they're doing, don't try to do too much. And obviously, like, the big thing is Desmond Bane is there to be a floor spacer and a shooter. We'll talk a little bit more about him as the week goes on. We're going to get to actually hear him and hear how he's playing and see all the impact he's having. But Desmond Bane rose from 60 to 39 last year. And so I think there is, at least in ESPN's ranking, I think there is this sense that going to Orlando, being on this team with Paolo and Franz, and being in this role is going to elevate his game further. And again, it's been a while since we've had this thought of like, oh no, the Magic are going to make a good player even better. Now let's look at the players surrounding Desmond Bane. On ESPN's NBA rank, the three players behind him are Julius Randle at 42, OG Anunoby at 41, Aaron Gordon at 40. Again, Locked On NBA, same group of players are right around him. Aaron Gordon's 44, OG Anunoby's 45, Desmond Bane's 46. So those three players, and Julius Randle's 43. So literally, Locked On had the opposite order of ESPN rank. Again, let's not argue necessarily. Let's not split hairs on who's better, who's worse. They're in the same group. I think it's pretty safe to say those are the same kinds of players. The players immediately before Desmond Bane are Darius Garland, 38, Amen Thompson, 37, Ivica Zubac, 36. Kind of same deal as Franz, are right near each other. These are like borderline all-stars depending on how things shake out. Like Darius Garland's been an all-star before. Ivica Zubac actually is a real good candidate to be an all-star this year. I know there's a lot of centers and bigs on that international team. Zubac had an incredible year last year. And look, people are just really high on Amen Thompson. He's going to play a really important role for that Rockets team, especially now with Fred VanVleet out. I'm not as high on, sorry, I clicked the wrong one there. I'm not as high on Amen Thompson taking that leap, but things happen, could happen. I'm not going to sit here and pretend otherwise. That leaves only one guy left to talk about, and that's Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs actually took a monumental leap going from in ESPN's ranking from 95 to 59. Again, same deal as Desmond Bane. He is among these elite role players, or these very high level role players, just like he was on the Locked On NBA Top 100, where he's next to Alex Caruso, Isaiah Hartenstein, Jaden McDaniels, Fred VanVleet's in that part of the list. Dyson Daniels is 61. Jalen Suggs came in at 67 on the Locked On NBA Top 100. So again, about the same spot, same grouping of players. On ESPN, the three players that precede Jalen Suggs are Christian Brown, Zion Williamson, and Austin Reeves. I think we could all, Zion at his best is better than Jalen. I don't think we'll argue that, but Zion's never healthy. The three players ahead of him are Trey Murphy III, Miles Turner, and Isaiah Hartenstein. Again, I'm not going to complain too much about that. You're looking at elite, high-level role players that play big roles for their teams. Now, obviously, the big thing for Jalen Suggs is to be healthy. If he's healthy and on this Magic team, he'll have a major impact. And we talked about that impact yesterday, so go back and listen to yesterday's episode for that. But health is a concern. He's coming off a pretty major knee injury, and we don't know his status for training camp. Again, listen to last night's episode or yesterday's episode to get the full lowdown on that. So again, what does this all mean? It does mean that there are heightened expectations for the Magic. It does mean that a lot more is expected of this team than before. Is this Magic team considered a championship contender, though? Not yet. Not yet. And that's fine. They haven't proven it. They haven't done it. They haven't confirmed how good they can be. The question then, or the issue then, and what they have to do this season is prove that they're on that championship path. ESPN kind of quietly thinks they're gonna get closer to it. I'm actually intrigued that ESPN ranked the Magic's players higher than we did at the Locked On Network. It seems like they're a little more optimistic about what this Magic team can do. But at the end of the day, all these things are just things. You got to go out on the court and prove it. You got to go out on the court and play. And we are inching closer and closer to getting that answer of whether this team is ready to do what we think they can. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. You can find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the Film IC download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can check us out on YouTube as well. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to subscribe to my newsletter at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, now that you're done hearing me wax poetically about the Locked On NBA Top 100, go check out all our great content, all the great NBA stuff over at Locked On NBA and throughout the Locked On podcast network. Pick a team, find them, listen to them, get yourself ready for the upcoming season. The Locked On NBA Top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every day from the Locked On Podcast Network. Find the full list on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't miss my reaction. You heard some of it today. We talked a little bit about it again about 2 weeks ago, Wednesday, 2 weeks ago, Tuesday. Chatted with Kuka Hill of Locked On Pistons about Cade Cunningham and Paolo Banchero. And I chatted more fully about the list, shared some of those thoughts, and repeated some of those thoughts today. But you can check out that full episode to catch up on the Locked On NBA Top 100. Training camp is almost here, so we're very, very excited to get some real basketball coming in. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. On tomorrow's episode, we're going to do our season preview, our season preview checkup with our friend Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel. We'll talk with him tomorrow. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.